Matt's presentation is entitled Visualizing Opportunities and Stewarding Communities. Ladies and gentlemen, please help me welcome to the podium Matt Griffin.
It's so much nicer than Paul usually is. I really don't know how to handle it. So I'm going to try to use this handheld microphone. Does this work? Okay, just because I know I don't stand still very well. So when I was asked to do this, I sort of think about what's it really take in a community and how do you go about it. And not yet. Closer? Oh, I may not be able to do it. We'll try. So the question is about what's it really take in a community. And as my friend Jack and I were having a discussion at lunch, it's really about how do you start the right conversation among people in the community. And it's a conversation about what are the right things to do, what are the goals that we share. And today, just talk a little bit about sort of how I grew up here in the city and what it meant for the way that we operate our business and the way that sort of believe in my own sort of philanthropic work with Evelyn. So first of all, some of you know I grew up in South Seattle. Down by Rainier and Genesee. My dad was an insurance broker. My mom was a school teacher. And I got into my fair share of trouble, but managed to sort of dodge the big bullets. And my parents came to the conclusion at about 7th or 6th grade that if I went on to what then was Sharples and is now Aki Karosi, chances are I'd be in too much trouble. And my parents made a big decision to take a big sacrifice in our family and send me to a private school. And, I'm an adopted kid. I happened to land with a couple of nice people, parents that have been terrific, and they were hugely great to make great sacrifices so that their kids could have an education. And it made a big difference. I mean, I was a guy that went up to Lakeside. They found out I could barely read, and it turned out to be a very important experience for me. And along the way, there's always been a number of people that have taken a special interest. When I grew up, Paul mentioned about mowing lawns. There was an older guy down the street named Mr. Mole, Carlton Mole. And he'd always fix the lawnmower for me. He fixed my bicycle. He later fixed my Harley. And he was a good friend. But what I think I still to this day, I basically, every time I open up a piece of equipment, my bicycle or anything else, before I put it back, I think, God, Mr. Mole would tell me to clean it before I put it back. One of those guys, and that still rings in my ears after, 35 or 40 years. But again, important people, or people took an interest in me. So I got lucky in that way. I mean, I got very lucky. And when I went off to college, I was a guy, went to the east of school. I happened to be fortunate to meet Bill Lewis and room with Bill, who became one of my close friends. And in school again, I got lucky. I ended up being an engineer, probably because of Mr. Mole, good old Carlton Mole. But while I was an engineer, too, I was able to find a way to sort of do something that I ended up doing a lot of later, was kind of finding a twofer. And a twofer, what I mean here, which has been important for our business and everything else, the twofer there is that I was able to get a job working as a graduate, or basically a research assistant for one of the professors, get paid for it as a job, but also get scholastic credits. Okay? So simple concept, but trying to find things in all of our life where we can basically find where we get a twofer. Okay, a twofer. And I would say also then that when I got out of college, I applied to Howard Wright Construction Company. I was a carpenter, I was a civil engineer. I thought for sure I'd get a job. They sent me a nice letter, said, go stuff it. We don't have any jobs for you. And luckily, George Schukert, one of the senior guys at the time, grandson of the original founder, I called George, and George says, no, let me see if we can find something for you. He sent me to Alaska. Again, I got lucky. Somebody paid attention that didn't necessarily need to, but George did. A couple of years after graduate school, same kind of thing. I came home for a job, and I went back there and tried to find a job in the summers between my 2 years in graduate school, and couldn't find a job, or couldn't get one at Howard Wright, and I went to work for Baugh Construction. Unfortunately, Howard Wright took an interest. Howard called me during the summer, a little kid, or I was the same size I am now, but young compared to Howard's stature, it felt like this. And again, Howard said to me, would you like to work in the development business? So again, I got lucky. And I guess part of why I say all that is, in the giving that you do or the giving that any of us do in our community, we got to remember that we all got to where we are standing on somebody else's shoulders. And if we don't remember that, we just aren't thinking very smart. I mean, we just aren't thinking very smart. And it varies a lot for all of us, but all of us got here someplace. The idea that we did something on our own is like ridiculous. I mean, it's ridiculous. We all got lucky, we got helped. So that's one part. So part about that, just again, about people cared, you got to where you are from help from others, and frankly, I think in my mind you have a debt. Okay, a debt. Find a way to do it. After working about a decade, Evelyn and I basically said, well, we're just working like slaves. This is crazy. We're working like slaves. Make good money. I mean, more money than we needed. That's not what I told Runsdale when it came salary review time. And I'm still holding it against him. No, I remember back when I was in college, when I was in business school, there was a professor named Jerry Porras, and Jerry Porras taught a course called Organizational Behavior. And one of the things, I didn't think it was a very good class, okay, but one of the things, one day he made a comment. He said, when you leave this institution, you're all going to go out and take jobs, and those jobs, you're going to be socialized to believe certain things are important. And if you aren't careful, you're going to quickly pick up all those kind of values. On the other hand, if you can figure out how to extract yourself from what's going on and stand on the outside and look in, you can probably make a conscious decision about whether you want to be socialized to believe that's important. Okay? So after 10 years out of graduate school, we decided to take a year off and take a bike trip, as Paul said, around the world. And the real question was about basically having a chance to get off that treadmill and make a conscious decision about whether to get back on, and if we got back on, about how to get back on. Rode around the world, stayed in hotels, 13,500 miles, 30-some countries. We took planes and buses and trains behind the Iron Curtain, stayed in towns in China that never had a foreign visitor, navigated with Chinese maps. Great experience, terrific experience. But when we came back, we had these 2 bags that had 30 pounds. We pulled up to our house and we go, what the hell do we own all this stuff for? What do we own all this junk for? For God's sakes. And it made us realize that basically the only thing we didn't have enough of in our life that we wish we had more of was time. So how do we start making decisions about creating more time and less about sort of things? I was at my business school reunions a couple weeks ago, and there was a seminar on happiness. And they went through a bunch of questions, and they said, how do you feel about this, or how do you feel about that? And they said, does more money make you happier? And everybody kind of, business school people, a bunch of capitalist pigs, they're all kind of like this, I'm in the front row on the floor. But again, they said, what they find, and I want to be careful about how I say this, is that up to a certain level it makes people happier, but after a certain level it actually doesn't do any good. In fact, it goes down. And the number is surprisingly small. I mean, think about what it is in your own head. But the number they used in their studies at the business school at Stanford was like $70,000. $70,000. I mean, $70,000 is, and I realize it's more than the average family of 4 makes, but it's not millions and it's not hundreds of thousands of dollars. But when you make more than 70, it doesn't necessarily do you any good. So, kind of the conclusions was, I for sure knew I wasn't going to die the richest guy in the cemetery. Okay, after all, Gates was 4 years behind me in school. But if you decide that having more money, or you decide that basically acquiring more things isn't your goal, it opens up a lot more opportunities. There's just a lot more things you can do, and so it allowed us to change our life. Part of it then is you got to keep your costs down. And my friends kid me about how many times I patched my tires on my bike, and when one of my wheels dissolved on me this year, they told me, said, "See, see." But the real question is if you decide that having all those kind of funds isn't that important, and you basically can keep your costs down, it opens up a number of opportunities for you. So that was some choices we made. And when I think about who my heroes are in Seattle, I think about Willard Wright, Tom Foster, Bill Gates Sr., guys like that. It's all about other things they did in Seattle. So it was a chance to sort of step back and think about how would you like to be remembered in this community where you grew up, and that made a good change. And Paul said in 93, 94, we took a time off and rode our bikes to South America, which is the way it always gets said, but it's really not true. We rode from our driveway on Capitol Hill to Cabo, and then we flew to southern Chile and worked our way up to the Andes. And it's a long ways, Io. It's a long ways. It's not Africa, but it's a long ways. But we rode several passes that were higher than Mount Rainier. We rode about 10,000 miles in 10 months, and we were gone. And I came home, and Bill Lewis said he was involved in a 3-block project that what's now Pacific Place, the former Nordstrom store, et cetera. And he said he was working on it as a contractor and asked if I would help. And fortunate from traveling so much, we had a chance to see what happens in a lot of great cities around the world, whether it's Paris or Barcelona or Tokyo or Shanghai or any of these. And say, God, Seattle shouldn't be broken like this. This is ridiculous. Seattle shouldn't be broken like this. And fortunately, there was a group of local people. I see one of them over here, Mr. Banky and some others, about families that have been around Seattle for a long time. And they said, we also don't want to see our downtown broken. We'd love to make a better investment rather than just an okay investment. But the real reason to sort of pitch in and try to do this is we can't stand to have our downtown broken. So again, sort of a great sort of ethos in Seattle about people and families that have been here for so many years that they actually care about building a better city for their kids and their grandkids and others. And we're very fortunate to have that part of our community. So luckily enough, I was able to band together with them and put together a team of development people to do that project. And we finished that project, and when that was all done, my friends at Pine Street Group, some of you are here, raise your hands. Some of my colleagues are here, yeah, okay, half a dozen of you are here. We decided what should we do next, and we formed a company called Pine Street Group to do some other work. So I've talked a little about the personal, how we got here, so the business. So what kind of business philosophy comes out of this? We think about 4 things. Okay, one is that we want to build a better city in the projects we do. Second of all, we want to create interesting assignments for our team. Third, we want to be compensated fairly for what we do. And fourth, we want to work with great people. Okay, key in that is we don't think about it as being profit maximizers. Okay? Fortunately, we're good at solving some complex problems, and we try to get compensated fairly for that. But we aren't profit maximizers. And we wouldn't do a project that we didn't think was a good project for downtown. We just wouldn't do it. It's just not in our DNA. If we can't walk by it and feel proud about it, it ain't worth doing. It just ain't worth doing. But it's allowed us to make some good choices. And it's allowed us to work on the Pacific Place one, again, with sort of that twofer of doing an interesting job, doing great for our city. And thank God it worked. $500 million later, we all kind of, opened 14 years as of last Sunday. But also, then it allowed us to do the Washington Mutual Seattle Art Museum project. Again, figuring out a good pathway for Seattle Art Museum, do an interesting business deal, some good construction, and give both Sam a way to do it, a way to make a path. And then again, trying to figure out the twofer, a good business deal, but something that's good for downtown. And in all these projects, too, we don't think about them just as one single asset. We all know that saying about it's about location, location, location. Well, in a big project like that, you need to create part of the community. So we spend a lot of time thinking about how they link in, but again, luckily that fits with building a better downtown. In our apartment complex we're doing now, we're actually doing it's an interesting project, and my colleague Matt Rosauer is there, and he's in charge of it, and so the rest of us don't have to do as much. But we've got 654 apartments. We'll open them in February. So we've got all these empty apartments, or obviously we first opened them, most of them are empty. We have gone to the police, the firefighters, and the school teachers after we did a small study. So we did a small study. We found out from that location you can get to 60% of those three: the fire department, the fire building, the fire stations, the police stations, and the schools in Seattle. And you can get to 60% of them on one bus in 20 minutes, and 90% of them to one bus in 30 minutes. So we've gone to the Ethics Commission and then to each of those 3 groups and said, how would you like to have, if you could basically let all those people live in downtown at 20% off the price? So whatever discounts we're giving those anyway during the first 9 months, and try to have those people live in downtown Seattle for 9 months, or excuse me, for a year's lease. But again, it's trying to think of that too for about what would build a better community. We want more of those public servants living in downtown Seattle. We want to recognize them for what they do. They clearly just get beat up most of the time. And it doesn't cost us anything. I mean, it costs us a little bit, but if the apartment was vacant, it doesn't cost us anything. But again, it's in our group, it's trying to figure out about where are those places where we can get a twofer that helps us sort of carry out our business, but also basically helps us in sort of building a better downtown. So one last one. So then what's that mean sort of personally? For me, it's been important then to say, okay, that's sort of the personal life where I came from. There are these pieces about business. So what does it mean about sort of your own sort of work in the community? I believe that you help various nonprofits either because out of gratitude for what they did for you or because you're big believers in what they do in the community. You know, I've been fortunate to be involved with the YMCA for 30 years. And you know, that's one that's not out of gratitude. I never belonged to the Y as a kid, but I've just been impressed by what they do. Lakeside School is more about gratitude and what it did for me. But at the Y, you know, in particular, as Evelyn and I have said, when it came time to make a contribution for the YMCA and we made the largest one we ever made, it was just like it was easy. It was easy. And part of why it's easy, and this is the last point I'm going to make before getting out of your way, is that and I'd like to be sensitive about this, okay? Because there are people from all different income levels in this room, okay? There are clearly people that have huge balance sheets. There are people that are just starting out, and there are others. But the way that we try to think about it in our own household is that every year we want to give a certain percentage of adjusted gross income, and we want to give a certain percentage of our net worth every year. And I find that a great model. Okay, and a great model because once you've decided that you're going to give those amounts, then it's an opportunity and it's fun to hook up with an organization, whether it be the YMCA or others, and be able to have them help you achieve your goals by doing something in your community that you've already planned to do. Now, in our household, it's 15% of adjusted gross income and 1% of net worth. But, you know, and so in a crash in 98, you say, do you cut down when it goes down? No, we're going up. We ought to do it going down. But it's been a great model for us to where at the end of the year it becomes a much more fun discussion about where should we basically help that we haven't helped yet. So I'd encourage you all to think about that. I mean, once you get over that piece, it's a lot easier to think about. I mean, you got your costs down, you haven't done stupid things, etc. But you get your costs down, you could do that. It becomes a lot more fun of giving. We have a lot more interesting opportunities, and I think we all then have a better community. You know, we have a better community. And we're fortunate to be here because of people that did great things before us, and it's now our chance to help. So thank you.
Matt, we do appreciate your being with us today. We have made a donation in your honor to Seattle Rotary First Harvest of 150 pounds of produce, and we do appreciate your coming. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Happy to help.
There's been much on television lately. It's been all political ads, so most of us have not been watching. So instead, we're going to give you a couple of minutes of a video by our member Steve Crandall's firm ProMotion Holdings, and our special thanks to its producers Drew Witt and Luke Swain. Please dim the lights.
In a world without Seattle Rotary Service Foundation, problems would rule. Help wouldn't come. And hope would be lost. For over a century, Seattle Rotary has helped our community and our world. We've built the Rotary Boys and Girls Club, which serves thousands of kids in our community. We've raised $3 million for our local public television station, KCTS TV. And in our centennial year, we gave $4 million to change the lives of homeless families served by Wellspring Family Services. We partner at home and around the globe with Rotary International. Our efforts include the fight against polio.
The reason we're even able to have a discussion about how to eradicate polio is because Rotary's efforts have helped get us 99% of the way there.
Now, join us on an adventure that lasts a lifetime, that impacts our community and our world. For generations to come.
Thank you. And our next speaker is representing our club's 3 generation of Bridge family members and is anchoring this launch. He is my good friend and one of the true treasures of both Seattle Rotary and the Seattle community, Herb Bridge.
If you haven't one of these at your table, be sure and get one. What a great summation it is of this powerful Rotary. You know, I need some volunteers. I'd like to have, say, around 25 of you. We're going to have a pancake breakfast, and that'll be followed by an ice cream social. And by the way, would the Master of Arms go around and collect $5 from anyone that doesn't have a Rotary pin on? Does that sound familiar to any of you that have done interclubbing? Of course, but it isn't the style for Seattle 4. Not at all. And this thing that they just put together, the Service Foundation, is fantastic. If you haven't read it, well, first of all, put up your hand with a pen or a pencil. Put up your hand, each one of you, with a pen or a pencil. I just want to make sure you haven't lost your ability to hold a pen or a pencil and to put your name and signature on the little pledge that's in front of you. Now tell me, is there anyone at any table that didn't put up their... I want to know right now. I'm sure that everyone raised their pen or pencil. And I just want to run through very quickly this very great form. It says, Step 1, the annual gift to the Seattle Rotary Service Foundation. All these things are what you in Seattle 4 have done. If that doesn't make you proud to be a Rotarian and proud to be a human being, I don't know what could, because this is really solid stuff. And it's the power, the muscle we have in being Seattle Rotary. We need people, and we need dedicated people. We've got dedicated people. We need more of them. And the more we have, the more we'll be able to do that's good, and the more we'll be able to walk away from our lunch and say, you know, not only was it entertaining, not only did Matt Griffin give me a great talk, but I have helped Seattle, I've helped our community, and I've helped the world. You get into step, by the way, this is $400 for the Seattle Rotary Service Foundation. Whether you know it or not, your very being a Rotarian pledged that you would give $400 to the Service Foundation. So this is a no-brainer. You put down $400, or, if you're more generous, put down $1,000 and be one of the Skills Foundation thing. We'll have a party in June for the privileged ones that have put $1,000 on it, and I'd like to see lots of you there at that $1,000 party. Step 2, another no-brainer, the annual gift to the Rotary International Foundation. We have sat around and heard, and many of us have done, raised a lot of money for what's overseas. That's what the Rotary International Foundation does, and you have a gift level of $100, but if you want to give $500 or $1,000, we would enjoy your doing that. It would feel terrific, I promise you. This money that I'm asking you to put down right now, is money that you're going to enjoy because you aren't spending it, you're investing it. And with that, put your pen where it counts. On that blank, fill them in. Step 1, $1,000 would be nice. 400's required. You can't leave the room without that. But 1,000 would be kind of nice too. And then the international, at least $100. And if you wanted to give $1,000 again there, believe me, it'll come back to you in many dividends throughout your lifetime. Thank you.
Seattle Rotary Online is made possible in part by a grant from First Choice Health, working with the Washington Health Information Collaborative to use technology to bring better health care to patients throughout the Pacific Northwest. First Choice Health.